Welcome to the Ring Ramble podcast. Hello, everybody. I am V,
My name is Brad.
and today is our very first podcast episode. Yay!
Hooray.
Okay, so today we'll be covering this week's Raw July 22nd edition, NXT July 23rd edition, and Smackdown July 26th edition. I want to start off by saying I'm planning on making this podcast visually appealing, so you'll see photos like flashing on your screen kind of, and hopefully some clips in the video format of this podcast. We'll focus on a recap of this week's shows, or at least the more important moments of the shows, and provide our thoughts as we delve into any outsider information on the respective Raw, NXT, and Smackdown starts. Quick thing before we start, we plan on discussing our wrestling preferences, like styles, matches, and wrestlers in a separate video, if you want to better understand why we have the opinions we have respectively. Okay, so first, the Raw 22nd edition, July 22nd edition, started with Gunther arriving to the ring and talking about his match with Damian Priest at SummerSlam. He first basically started roasting Damian Priest, calling him like street trash and stuff like that, and Damian didn't really like it. But this time, instead of apologizing, he doubled down, which aggravated Damian Priest. He also mentioned too that he would reinstate Prestige into the World Heavyweight Championship as he did the Intercontinental Championship. And Damian didn't like that, and he marched towards Gunther, and a fight ensued, and the men were attempted to be separated, but that didn't really work. They fought backstage instead. So I want to talk about this matchup that's gonna happen. I will let you go first, talking about Damian Priest or Gunther, your opinions on either one of them, and the match soon to come.
Well, I guess the first thing to go off on here is that the build up to this match is definitely not something that's on par to being exciting, at least not for me. I think that the Gunther championship is inevitable, and I feel that he has a very good shot of dethroning Damian Priest due to the fact that Damian Priest at this moment in time has having an identity issue from coming from being a heel, now turning into a semi-baby face with some sort of humor attached. So I don't really see that the character is very serious for a long-term run, where I feel as Gunther has had a long-standing career of being very strict and disciplined in the ring, along with his delivery on his promos, that he definitely has the championship caliber to pull it off on SummerSlam.
Yeah, I also agree. This is actually one of I think few things that we agree on. It's kind of 50-50 when we disagree or agree on things, but I agree. I don't think of Damian as being that fourth person to beat Gunther in a match. It just doesn't seem likely. And then again, with his character, I don't understand it. Usually when a heel becomes a babyface, it's because they face some kind of betrayal of sorts. And I feel like Damian becoming champ isn't really the means for him to be, formerly being like this, emotionless, kind of edgy, evil dude, to now a carefree, instigating with Dominic and Rhea and stuff. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I agree that that character is just not going to last very long, or at least it shouldn't. I don't really see it going that way, and I just think Gunther is just a better candidate for the title, although I can understand why people don't believe that Gunther will win, because he has a history of having such a long title reigns. And I think a lot of people tend to think that the product gets boring when there's long title reigns, as they frequently have been. So I want him to win, but if he doesn't, I don't think I'd really hold my breath or get really upset about it if it were to happen. Plus, on top of that too, I think about Seth Rollins and the whole gentleman's agreement kind of thing, but then Damian Priest said that was kind of null and void, so I don't think it really I guess, matters in the long run. So that's it. That's all you think? Okay. Moving. There's an ad in the background. Okay, moving on. The first match of the night was a qualifier for a title shot for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam, which was between Braun Breaker and Ilya Dragunov, with Braun Breaker winning, however not via pinfall, sorry, but by default as Ilya could not continue the match. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this because of Ilya. Well, I'll give a little context first before you go. I'm a huge Braun Breaker fan since NXT 2.0. I'll speak afterwards, but my dad is a big fan of Ilya Dragunov, so this is kind of a little awkward for us, considering we like both wrestlers.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, obviously Ilya Dragunov has just recently joined the main roster, so of course, it's not like we're expecting him to freaking dominate the way that we were expecting him to do when he came over. But at the same time, the victories and the losses he's had has made him look strong regardless. So to have him get speared on the outside of the ring and taking that bump the way he did and having the referee call the match because he's no longer to continue did make him look good. But it also just makes Braun look, in my opinion, kind of weak. And the push for Braun definitely is not working for me, for the stance that seems to be just running around spearing people. His music needs to get it together because, I mean, the theme song has changed so many times. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Like, yeah, Deferable, no lie, you kind of need to resign. That second song was growing on me after they changed it, and then they just changed it again, and then it just lost me after that.
Yeah, so the lack of consistency on that end is definitely making it kind of difficult to follow him. Don't get me wrong, though. Braun Breaker is an incredible wrestler. He's an incredible athlete. He's very powerful. He's really good in the ring. But I think the way they're going about it is like kind of making him like a lower version of Goldberg or Brock Lesnar. Doesn't seem to really kind of flow well with him. I think on the more of the lines of like how he was in NXT, like keeping that kind of character that he had, where he's very cocky at the same time, but he was able to be explosive, not sitting here kind of whining and complaining because he wasn't able to go in King of the Ring. I think that kind of stuff is kind of a little bit kind of making his character a little weak. I mean, obviously he can bounce back from it, you know, depending on how his match goes with Sami Zayn. And I slightly believe that there's a very big possibility that he might actually beat Sami Zayn.
Yeah, I agree. Basically everything that you said, I think that his character is completely different than it used to be on NXT, and NXT was more believable because he was just like, oh, I'm the best spear in the business kind of thing. And, that was like the ego part of it, which was cool. But he didn't have a fragile ego even in the times that he lost. Or at least I didn't think so. Unlike now, where he's just like whining and complaining about like the King of the Ring, the Money in the Bank. And then now getting a second match at SummerSlam, I'm kind of like, I don't know, we just saw it. And this is actually something that we talked about earlier too, was I don't have a problem with wrestlers, engaging in, matches back to back and pay-per-views because, Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes did that and it was amazing. It was like great matches, 3 great matches. And with this one, it's kind of like rinse and repeat. It's the same thing. Like the promos are even the same where it's just Braun saying like, I'm going to destroy you and all this stuff. And then Sammy's just like, oh, well, determination is like key and blah, blah, like some like motivational speech kind of thing. I don't know how to explain it, but it's kind of just the same thing now. And I felt like Ilya would have been more refreshing or would have been the best option was to have a triple threat match, which is something they explicitly said that they did not want to do, which is something that you also said that you wanted.
Which is also very possible that can still happen. We do have, the Monday coming up before Survivor Series, that something can occur to make it a triple threat. There is no reason why that can't be on the table. That will just be something to wait and see what happens on Monday. But as of right now, if I was going to make some sort of prediction off it, I would actually kind of say that it would be a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam.
You don't think this is kind of similar to like how Ricochet had gotten beat up by Braun Breaker and you know had to take, well, obviously we know why he took time off, why he's taking time off too, but in like, you know, to make it more believable, I think it would take a lot longer for Alien to come back, something like that. I don't know. I don't think it would become a triple threat match, but that is best case scenario in my opinion. So yeah, all right, moving on. Was a segment between Chad Gable and the Creeds attacking the Alpha Academy, which was cut short by the Wyatt Six. And Chad Gable, you know, he was like petrified in the middle of the ring and received a Sister Abigail by Uncle Howdy / Bo Dallas. So this happened after a Karrion Kross, a match between Alpha Academy and the Final Testament. And I just want to like quickly touch on the Final Testament. I really like Karrion Kross. I like the AOP. I think the Final Testament's really cool. However, and I love the Alpha Academy too. So don't get me wrong when I say this, but I just think it's kind of an insult to Karrion Kross's rebrand into the Final Testament to fight Xavier Woods and Otis and Akira Tozawa. Because they're like such powerhouses, AOP and Karrion Kross. It just doesn't feel appropriate to have them fight the way that they do. And on top of that, that whole weird storyline going on right now with Karrion Kross wanting to recruit, like, was it Kofi Kingston or was it Xavier Woods? Either one of them felt very random to me. Yeah, so that was just something I wanted to say very quickly. And did you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, like, what V is saying is actually, in a way, I can agree with her. But I don't really see the purpose of the confrontation with the Wyatt Six and the Alpha Academy. I can understand with Chad Gable because of the whole idea about family, turning your back on family, and this is a way of kind of trying to teach him a lesson. Now, I don't know how far they can go with this. I mean, because if it's just going to be a segment every Raw, I mean, is it eventually going to turn into some sort of a match down the road?
It is. It's going to be in a segment for until they finish, basically.
But it's just the possibility of just like, are they building it the way it is? Is this more of a paying homage to like the whole, you know, Bray Wyatt, you know, scenario, like the Wyatt family, like theme that is bringing back a lot of nostalgia to people? But it's like, how much longer can you hold that on until it gets to a point where it starts to dry out? That's my only concern that I have with it, because I think the Wyatt Six is awesome. I think it's a cool freaking, I like the look that everybody has. I just wonder if this is something that can be a long-term thing down the road. Is this going to start to like sputter off towards the end? That's something I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I like them too. I just, you know, God forbid I want to see wrestling, a wrestling show. I know it's more dramatic on WWE, so that's something like I can accept, but it will, I personally feel like it's getting dry, but I know that it hasn't really been that long since they first came out, so maybe that's just my impatience with it. But I have so many like theories and ideas about like who the Wyatt Six can go against potentially. Like I'm afraid of the Judgment Day breaking up sooner rather than later, and I would like to have see the Wyatt Six fight the Judgment Day, having, you know, they're in the same brand. And on top of that too, like, you know, the well, kind of aged poorly now, but the House of Black, I would like to see Wyatt Six go against them too. But we'll touch on that soon. I think the whole attacking Chad Gable thing is kind of random, but I do understand that the storyline that they're, or the angle that they're probably going with the whole family thing. So yeah, that's basically all my thoughts on that so far. So next is CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. So CM Punk entered the ring to speak to the audience, which was interrupted by Drew. And as both men kind of arguing. They were separated, and general manager Adam Pearce announced that a match would be between the two at SummerSlam, with two stipulations that neither man could fight or even touch one another before SummerSlam, and that Seth Rollins would be the special guest referee for that match. I'm going to be honest, this is a kind of a hot take. I don't care. I lost my kind of my patience with this whole CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre thing a long time ago. During the Clash at the Castle things, more specifically, I really thought it would have been a great moment for Drew to have won in Scotland, but obviously that did not happen, and I just thought it was kind of stupid because, CM Punk being not medically cleared but somehow able to attack him and do all the things that he's done to him. I just think it's just really not fair. And with Seth being guest ref, I also have kind of my reservations about that. I'm not the biggest Seth fan either. I'm a big Punk fan though, but I just don't like the angle of him snubbing Drew. So, go ahead.
I actually kind of disagree. I think the whole idea of Seth Rollins being involved as a guest referee kind of opens up another kind of another situation between him and Seth Rollins, because I have a feeling that eventually Seth Rollins will regain that title, and then you will kind of start to see the fact that the McIntyre-Seth Rollins issue will come back into it. But the CM Punk situation, this is what CM Punk does, and he is great at what he does when it comes to building up for a match. And so I'm pretty excited for the idea of seeing CM Punk and Drew McIntyre wrestle. I'd like to think that I feel like it's going to be a good match. I feel like CM Punk is probably in a better shape than he was when he first came to the Royal Rumble. As we all know, that he was pretty gassed, pretty quickly when he came into it and, suffered an injury. So I actually don't really agree with what you're saying. I actually think I'm actually kind of excited to see it, because I feel like CM Punk, has always been one of the best when it came to promo work and building to a match. And I think that this match is going to be a very good match. And with Seth Rollins involved as a referee, I think it's going to make it even better, and will build to something much better when you get to WrestleMania 41.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it won't be a good match. I just think the build up, it didn't impact me that much, I guess. Well, a side note I don't know if I told you this or not, but Drew McIntyre actually recently took a picture with Jack Perry with the caption basically saying it's a real photo, like Cry Me a River kind of thing, which is kind of homage to CM Punk's rivalry, or real life rivalry, I guess I should say, with Jack Perry in AEW, where he basically, I think, if I'm not mistaken, CM Punk told Jack Perry not be so reckless, I guess, something like that, and Jack Perry took offense. If I'm wrong, correct me, but he got dropped on a car windshield and said real glass, cry me a river to the camera, towards CM Punk. I thought that was pretty funny, honestly, that he went that far. And also find it kind of weird too, because I feel like Jack Perry's just so anti WWE that the fact that he even took a picture with Drew McIntyre, to me, feels kind of strange.
They all are friends outside of the business. I mean, but this just builds more to the heat towards this rivalry they have. So I mean, I saw the same photo and I thought it was kind of funny, because of the fact is that this is something that is kind of still a hot topic issue amongst the wrestling community. So I thought it was well done to build for SummerSlam. So I'm a fan of it. I think it was pretty funny.
Triple H and Tony Khan, please open the forbidden door. I want Samoa Joe, please. I know he's doing Twisted Metal. Please, though. Okay. Moving on to... okay. Arguably the best thing happening in wrestling right now, which is the Liv, Dominic, and Rhea love triangle. Liv Morgan flirted some more with Dominic in front of Rhea in this Raw, which Dominic stepped up to tell Liv that he hates her with all his life, breaking Liv's heart. So, what is your opinion on the Liv and Dominic story?
I mean, it definitely pays homage to the whole scenario with Chyna and Eddie Guerrero. So, to me, I find it very refreshing to kind of at this time in this stage with someone like Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio, which are two people that would obviously never be together ever. But I find it humorous. I think that Liv Morgan's doing some of the best work she can at the moment. And I feel that it definitely opens up a lot of possibilities for the actual match when it occurs? Is there the possibility that who's Dominic going to betray in that match? Is he going to betray Rhea or is he going to betray Liv? That's the question that I'm looking forward to on that day.
Yeah, there could be so many endless possibilities with whoever he picks. So I love it. I think it's great, and like he said, Eddie and China, that's one of my favorite storylines ever. And even just the way it's playing out with like kind of the cheating thing, it's the exact same thing, and I like it a lot. You're a Liv Morgan fan, though. I'm a Rhea Ripley fan, so we're a little bit split when it comes to who's Dominic's like girl, who's he gonna choose. But I agree with everything you said. So speaking of Rhea, I have 2 side notes actually that came up this week. Starting with her real life husband, Buddy Matthews, supposedly re-signing with AEW. What do you think about that?
Well, obviously, if what is being said out there is that Tony Khan doesn't want him to leave, and that's why he gave him a very lucrative contract offer for him to stay, then, obviously it says a lot about the House of Black is definitely not leaving AEW, because you can't really keep one of them without the other two. So in that sense, that is kind of disheartening for me, but I feel that maybe it's a possibility that, this whole rivalry could develop somehow in some way. I don't know if it's going to be something that's going to happen soon, but it definitely could be the long game, which is, something that Triple H is known to do. So I'm kind of interested to see how it plays out when the actual SummerSlam match happens, because that's really going to tell you a lot. If Dominic Mysterio does end up betraying Rhea, it definitely puts a situation where does Rhea lie in that regard? Who's going to be part of the Judgment Day? Are they going to branch out to something else? Then that stuff would make sense to have people like Aleister Black, Buddy Matthews, and Brody King coming into the fold. But if this is what's being stated, then it definitely kind of puts a brakes on the whole idea of that storyline developing.
Yeah, that makes me really sad. Like, basically with what I said about the Wyatt Six, I just think it would just be so cool for these darker groups to fight each other. It does, bring a lot of questions about Aleister Black. I mean, they're kind of just a package deal, and now that that's happened, I mean, I find it like so insane that the whole intention of re-signing him was not even for the sake of wanting him back. It's for the sake of just not letting him go to WWE.
But in any case, though, it could be possible, though, that Aleister Black actually wants to be a solo wrestler only, and that the whole idea of the House of Black thing is something he doesn't want to do anymore. So there's a possibility that he could sign and come back as just a solo. And then it's a possibility if he does come back, then it's like maybe that's where Rhea and maybe Damian Priest come into the fold and they start something else.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when the time does come where Aleister Black or the House of Black does come to the WWE, I do believe that, Rhea and Damian being so close, I just feel like they would go there eventually. And I feel this also because part of me wants to believe that the storyline would come true. But in the case that Dominic does pick Rhea, but still casually sees Liv Morgan behind her back, obviously we'll see it in a promo, and Rhea may not even know. But if Buddy Matthews were to not re-sign with AEW, I would have liked that if he did come here already, he would, be flirting with Rhea, see Rhea, and Rhea also be flirting with him. But also being not oblivious to Dominic, but kind of hiding the fact that she does know that Dominic's still seeing Liv, and kind of do like a whole 180 on him, basically breaking up with him. And I also think it would be kind of funny too, considering Buddy Matthews was dating Dominic's sister during the pandemic, time of like, you know, wrestling. And it would be kind of like funny to see Dominic say like, what the heck, that's like my sister's ex-boyfriend or something like that. That would have been really interesting, but now it's a little bit more different now, considering, you know, Buddy Matthews re-signing. But it would be kind of cool if Aleister Black did come alone. I know right now he's considered just a tag team with Brody King, because, you know, Rhea and Buddy got married. So I'd like to think that if he does come, maybe Zelina Vega might join him too, which would be very awesome in my opinion. I would really like that. But it would be best if it was all the House of Black with Rhea and possibly Damien and also Zelina. That would be very, very cool. And the second side note that I have about Rhea is the Rhea and Jey Uso storyline thing that's kind of been happening for a while. So first I want to say that Jey Uso's rumored to have a tag team with Sami in the near future because they won the main event of the July 22nd Raw. But that is only if Sami Zayn does eventually lose to Braun Breaker. But first, the whole Rhea thing. Rikishi, Jay's father, a great wrestler. I love the guy. Like, he's great. But his comments about Jay, I feel like are a little... I think they're a little bit petty, in my opinion. But he basically said that the Rhea and Jay storyline is going to apparently so-called ruin his marriage, his real-life marriage. And I was like, okay, well, it's a little intense to say that, you know? And he said that is that all they got for my son is a storyline with Rhea, a fling with Rhea all of a sudden? Which I'm like, this has been happening for a while now. I mean, there's been segments from, I think, last year where Jay would tell Rhea, like, we all missed you, or like, mommy's whatever, like, whatever, looking for her and stuff. That kind of stuff. And on top of that, too, Rikishi had previously complained about Jay not winning the Money in the Bank too, which, yeah, sure, because, you know, he was on the cover of the SummerSlam, and, you know, it's kind of like they advertised him more, but he didn't end up winning. I get it. And then also, like, you know, you're the dad, you're the best for your sons, you know, to have the best storyline and to do the best things. But arguably, he has been a part of the best storyline, which is the Bloodline storyline. And that's ongoing too. On top of that, I mean, something like with a Rhea thing, it's not going to be nearly as long as, you know, Bloodline versus Bloodline potentially in the future, where Jay's going to, you know, be with Jimmy on Roman's side against the current Bloodline right now. I just think that that's kind of something that he, I guess, needs to consider, that his son he's still, like, booked for a good, like, matches and good opportunities in the future. Any thoughts?
Well, I think that's probably just his father just doing a shoot, just basically kind of sitting there just trying to stir some controversy. But I feel like the only thing that's really going to show what's going to happen here is if that, say, Jey Uso interferes or like shows up for that match against Rhea and Liv. That will open up a lot of potential for that storyline to grow if that's what happens. And to say Dominic does try to screw over Rhea, and it's like Jey Uso jumps in to, like, stop him from doing it, then that will definitely kind of throw, you know, a different direction with Jey Uso. But eventually, though, Jey Uso will end up being with Roman Reigns and Jimmy and some other secret partner for a Bloodline story that eventually will happen.
Maybe Higuleo. I don't know. It's possible. I mean, he's the only one so far who has been signed. I think Zilla hasn't yet, so we have yet to see that, and also which side he'd be on. I know you think that Jacob Fatu is going to switch at some point, right?
I do. I think Jacob Fatu is going to turn on Solo.
Okay, so concluding the Raw thing, I'm just going to mention real quick. 2 matches that were not mentioned today were Zelina versus Zoe Stark and Sonya Deville versus Lyra Valkyria. Zelina, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Zelina won that match, and I know Sonya Deville beat Lyra Valkyria. So, moving on to NXT July 23rd edition. I'm gonna be honest, there was not much that happened this week with NXT, but there's a few things that I need to mention. I'm gonna be honest, that beginning promo between Cedric Alexander, Ashante the Adonis, and Trick was a little bit awkward. I don't know if it was just me, but I felt like there was just no flow. There was kind of like an awkward silence. And then I felt like that translated into the match that Cedric and Trick had, because there was a lot of sloppy moments. And I like Trick a lot, but he definitely screwed up a bunch. And I did see some comments under like a WWE post on that match, and people were complaining about how sloppy Trick was being in that match.
I think it was kind of a test to see how Trick Williams can do with somebody that's like a Cedric Alexander type wrestler. Obviously, he's more of a higher fly kind of guy, more like acrobatic kind of style, and it didn't seem like Trick really, like, they weren't on the same like page when it came to like how they were working together, and that kind of showed. I don't know if that was something that they planned to have this happen, or if it was something thrown together. So, yeah, it was definitely awkward. It really didn't make a lot of sense. I don't know if it really has anything to do with the rivalry with him and Ethan Page. I don't think that really has much to do with it. But it definitely was, nice to see Cedric Alexander out there doing, like, what he does. I mean, because he hasn't really been doing a lot lately. But yeah, other than that, it was just kind of like a letdown in a way. Just kind of didn't really start off in a good direction for NXT that day.
Yeah, both are really good, like, talented wrestlers. Shout out to the Cruiserweight division, because I thought Cedric Alexander was awesome during that time. Yeah, they're both good, talented wrestlers. It just was really awkward in that moment. And another confusing part to me was Pete Dunne attacking Trick following that match. I don't really understand what Pete Dunne's position is. I know he's seemingly going to have a rivalry with Trick because of all that.
I think that's just Pete Dunne just coming in to step up the game of Trick Williams. I think it's just going to like make Trick Williams a better wrestler, giving him a rivalry with somebody that was so dominant in NXT like as Pete Dunne was. So, I mean, we saw, like, if you saw all those, like, 5-star matches that Pete Dunne had, back in the day when he was in NXT, I definitely think it's going to bring the best out of Trick Williams.
I agree. Yeah. When you put it like that, it makes sense. Okay. Ethan Page was kind of taking on a really interesting, character with being deluded by everybody around him. But it at first I was like, okay, what the heck is happening? Like, have I not been paying attention very much? But then I was like, you know what, this makes sense because his ego was hurt. The fact that he got pinned by Oro Mensah, or yeah, something like it was an official match. It wasn't an official match, so that kind of makes sense. I think it's kind of funny. I love Ethan Page. I think he's great. And you know what, Oro Mensah is a really good wrestler. And I look forward to seeing that match. Although I don't really think Oro Mensah would win, it would be pretty cool if he did.
Well, I mean, it's just obviously, like what you said, it's just basically, his ego was chipped, and it bothered him when he was, his ego is on, that's what his character is. So it definitely is funny to see that he's, getting really hurt by the idea that he was pinned. And even though he wasn't necessarily officially pinned, the referee then did pin him again. He did count to 1, 2, 3.
He did get pinned again.
And I thought that was kind of funny because it just builds around the idea of just like the character. So yeah, Ethan Page definitely is doing good work. Liking that he's the champ. And I feel like a heel champion is a better champion.
I totally agree. Also, Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend earned a title shot at the women's tag team titles against the champions Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Now I'm not gonna go deep into Alba Fire and Isla Dawn until in a little bit, because Smackdown they eventually showed up, but that's just information basically. Okay, so finally, I'd like to touch on the spectacular, amazing match at the end, the main event actually of the show that happened between the NXT Tag Team Champions Nathan Frazer and Axiom, accompanied by Javon Evans, versus the Rascals, which includes Trey Miguel, Zachary Wentz, and Wes Lee. This match was so good. I'm a fan of high flying So like I think everybody's a fan of like flying because it's just so like flashy and like so cool. But that whole match was just like there was so much happening, but it was all good. I felt like they were very like smooth. They were, the moves were conducted like perfectly. I think Rascals is a really good addition to, like as a whole team, a very good addition to NXT. I'm really liking how the TNA collaboration has been going, especially Joe Hendry. But it's great. I thought it was amazing. I mean, like words cannot really be. There's no proper words to explain how good the match was. Is what I'm trying to say.
The only negative I can say about the Rascals is their little hand gesture thing. I personally find that to be really annoying, but I get the gimmick. But I definitely like the fact that this really kind of puts Wes Lee on a different level and not trying to follow that North American Championship. Because, once he lost that, it's like he was trying to get it back from Obafemi, but it's like, let's be real, that's Obafemi. And there's not really, I don't think Wes Lee is going to be taking that title away from Obafemi anytime soon. So the new addition of like the Rascals is definitely cool. Those guys are very extremely talented, and that was a very, very great match to watch, and it definitely closed out the NXT for that day on a very, very high note. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of the Rascals and anybody that they go up against in the future.
Yeah, I think honestly Cedric Alexander and Ashante would have been very good candidates to go against them too, considering they are like smaller, high flyer type of guys. But yeah, great match. If you have not seen it, I don't think you would have if you're listening to this right now, but if you haven't seen it, go and see it. The July 23rd edition of NXT Rascals versus Nathan Frazier, Axiom, and Javon Evans. Okay, now to the final show of the week, SmackDown, July 26th edition. Started off with a discussion between the Bloodline and Nick Aldis. Nick offered the Bloodline to be disqualified from the tag team qualifying gauntlet match due to Tonga Loa suffering an eye injury. However, Tama Tonga offered Jacob Fatu to be Tonga Loa's replacement. I love this. Jacob Fatu is awesome. We've known Jacob Fatu before he even got here, way before he even got here. He's an incredible wrestler. And it does make me a little sad, though, because, Tonga Loa hasn't really done much. The same thing with Tama Tonga. I don't want to get too deep into it. I kind of hate that Tama Tonga just gets beat up all the time. But it also does amplify Jacob Fatu's character because, he just pummels through everyone by himself. He doesn't even need Tama Tonga. So, yeah, I think that's great.
I mean, obviously, like Triple H made, that was probably one of the best pickups they ever made was Jacob Fatu. An incredible wrestler, agile for his size. Obviously, he lost some weight, but he is an incredible wrestler, and I definitely see, like, with the Bloodline and all this stuff that's going on, he is definitely going to be, like, the main focus for that entire rivalry that comes forward. So, yeah, awesome to see him in the tag match. Awesome to see, like, the moves that he was doing, the bumps that people were taking from him, and just the overall agility that he had in the ring was incredible. Yeah.
The first actual match of the night was Santos Escobar versus LA Knight. I'm gonna be honest, it was just like kind of a filler match for Logan Paul to eventually interfere with that match. So let's talk about LA Knight and Logan Paul. I don't like Logan Paul as a person outside of wrestling, but he's an amazing wrestler. I think he's built for it. He was born to do this. I think it's great. I know you don't like LA Knight at all. I don't really either. Personally, I think LA Knight, the catchphrases and the promo work is good, but it got dry. It ran its course. I feel like the sayings also ran its course. And this is not just exclusive to LA Knight. This is for other people. Like, I love Tiffany Stratton, but the Tiffy time saying it at every moment is just, it doesn't need to be happening. Same thing with Chad Gable when he was a good guy in the Alpha Academy. He would say thank you like over and over again. And it just doesn't need to happen. And if you really pay attention sometimes to LA Knight's promos, he tries to fit in those sayings, but they make absolutely no sense in the context of what he's saying. It's just the transitions are just not there. But as a wrestler himself, I mean, he's good. He's good. I'd like to see him have the United States Championship, especially because, that's kind of like a more mid-tier one. I do not see him being an undisputed champion. Like taking it from Cody would just be completely bizarre. Although he did pin Roman for the 1-2-3 count, if I'm not mistaken, at the Crown Jewel last year. That was very that's happened like pretty frequently now. I'd say some accidents like that with a pinfall. So what do you think?
Well, obviously, I mean, I think the LA Knight catchphrases and all that stuff has kind of started to dwindle. I think LA Knight should have been a champion a while back. I think the fact that he hasn't gotten it since, I feel like in some ways he's kind of just like declining in a way, like the gimmick and everything. But I feel like if anything, if there's a way to like kind of push him in a better direction or bring him to a new height, it definitely would be something to see him beating Logan Paul. And I actually believe strongly that I think he possibly will beat Logan Paul, being that the fact that, personal issues aside that Logan Paul is dealing with at the moment, I feel like in some ways it makes a lot of sense that it's possible that LA Knight could win. And I think then it would make, bring his brand up to a different level. But yeah, I think that, that's a match that I think is going to be a good one for SummerSlam. I would like to think that, Logan Paul is the ultimate heel, so it definitely makes it good to see him in a match where there is a possibility that he could lose, and I feel like this is probably that possibility.
Yeah, even though Logan is Ohio born, I don't think he's relatively liked there either. I mean, last year he was making fun of them, saying that he was the best thing that's happened to Ohio in a very long time. And I'd see him losing in his own home state, and that would be pretty damn impactful considering LA Knight is such a big figure. But speaking of Logan Paul, I'm just going to touch on this very, very shortly, but he is being sued again for Prime by the Olympics this time. He collaborated with Kevin Durant for an exclusive Prime drink for the Olympics, but he's getting sued for having this writing, and this is by USA Today, but the phrases that he had on the Prime drink included Olympian, Team USA, and going for gold. According to the lawsuit, is those sayings cannot be on there. I also believe that I didn't see it in this article, but I saw it separately. I don't remember what website I saw it on, but apparently 3-time like Olympic or 3-time NBA champion, something like that, is also trademark, and that's on the bottle as well. So on top of what he's already being sued for with the contents of Prime, now it's this. So I can't imagine all the stuff this guy's going through with also having to train and practice for this match. So next was Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair versus the tag team champions Elba Fire and Isla Dawn. I mean, they didn't fight, but they're alluding to a match very soon. This is when I wanted to talk about the champions. So do you want to go first? Oh, me go. Okay. I have some very strong opinions about Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. I don't think we've seen enough of them at all. So I'm not going to be that judgmental. First off, we haven't seen enough of them, like just on a like one off, like just normal tag team match. I don't think they've had enough matches to be champions, basically. And in that Clash at the Castle match, they performed the most poor out of the other tag teams, in my opinion. And to have won just didn't really make a whole lot of sense, especially with no build-up storyline heading towards that eventual win. I mean, I'm glad though that now they're finally getting a match, although I don't really see them beating Jade Cargill and Bianca on a solo level. I mean, at least in that past match they had Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler to kind of even out the odds. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, obviously they're going to be wrestling against Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. So that kind of just says right there that they're probably going to beat them, obviously, to have that match with Jade and Bianca. But yeah, I mean, I actually I like Elba Fire.
He has a crush on Isla Dawn, man.
Oh jeez.
Okay, hey, look, we all have crushes on a wrestler. Let's be real.
It's not necessary. Okay, but I mean, I do like that tag team, but I also agree with the fact that it's very hard to book tag teams, particularly in a women's division. There's not a lot of women in, like, tag teams, particularly not in WWE. So I mean, you see that most of the tag teams that are built up, there's only a couple of them that are actual tag teams. I mean, Jade is a solo wrestler, Bianca is a solo wrestler. So the idea that, the reason you're not seeing them wrestling as much as they can is because of the lack of depth when it comes to the tag team division. So that's it. But I mean, if you saw them in NXT and watched them when they were in NXT, they were a great tag team and they held the championship for a while. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out. But obviously, that is going to be a match that is going to be on Friday SmackDown, not the pay-per-view.
Which is so odd. I really thought it was going to be a pay-per-view match, and then they, at the end of the show, had shown that it was going to be on SmackDown, which is kind of like, that's a little weird. Like, you would think it would be on the caliber of, you know what, even sometimes they do like a random, like the countdown pre-show kind of thing. And, the tag team championship for females has been featured on a pre-show. I mean, Elimination Chamber was the Kabuki Warriors against Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae. So, I mean, that's not something we haven't seen before. That would have been, I think, better, honestly, than SmackDown. But, it is what it is. So, there was also a promo featured between Nia Jax offering Tiffany Stratton a new Money in the Bank briefcase. I think it's going to be pink. I think it's going to be sparkly. And, it's not going to age well, because I suspect that at SummerSlam, Tiffany's going to cash that thing in, and it's going to be very sad because, Nia has that match with Bayley, and if Nia wins, it might be like a whole Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre thing all over again, and it's even sadder because Nia is commissioning a new Money in the Bank briefcase personally made for Tiffany, especially one that has personal touches like maybe being pink and sparkly. I think that'd be very, very sad, but it'd be a very cool moment to see. And I'd hope Tiffany would be champion. I don't know how soon though. I mean, I'm considering she got that big push of having the Money in the Bank. They probably suspect it to be pretty soon. Hopefully it's not a failure though. I know 100% of women's Money in the Banks have been successful cash-ins. So hopefully Tiffany's not the first to fail cash-in.
Well, it's just the question is how they going to how they going to go about it with that match, because I mean, personally, I think anybody that's watching right now pretty much assumes that it's going to be Tiffany Stratton is going to cash in if Nia Jax pins Bayley and Nia's like hurt or whatever, that Tiffany Stratton is going to cash it in and betray her. It's pretty obvious that's where it's going. But then again, there are surprises that, there could be some sort of ace up the sleeve of Triple H and all that. But I mean, for anybody that is paying attention, let's be real, we all kind of know where that's going. So I'm interested to see how that pans out. But also if it ends up being the complete opposite of that, I'm happy. Because I'd like to see how that kind of builds Tiffany Stratton's character. Maybe, sure, her cashing in on a different person or a different champion. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I also think that, Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton could be still friends even after the cash-in, I guess you would say. But that would only be if Nia Jax loses to Bayley before Tiffany Stratton goes to cash in her Money in the Bank. That's the only possible way I can think that they'd be staying together in some way, because I do like their friendship too, especially, I follow Tiffany and sometimes I'll see like that they post a lot and they seem to become like pretty great friends ever since she got drafted or come to the main roster. So I'd like to think that they would still, maybe Nia Jax would just think, you're bringing this for the both of us. We're both going to have the title. So yeah, I'm interested to see what happens either way. There's so many possibilities with that one too. So the gauntlet match. It started with Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews versus Angel and Berto of Legado del Fantasma. We love Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews in this house, okay? I used to not like Baron Corbin when I was little because he looks like my dad. He looks exactly like my dad. And I just thought like his whole lone wolf thing was kind of like corny. But I've grown to like appreciate it now and appreciate him for all the work that he's done in NXT to help bring up talent. And I'm so glad that he came over here, and especially joining with Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews is amazing. Cruiserweight division again. He was awesome, and I really like that they're working together because they are truly like the underdogs of this brand. And I'm actually really happy that they won that first round. I was like, I was not like impressed, like shocked, like oh wow, like they did. Like I'm just really glad that they got the opportunity to move on and show like their skill in that match. And after the loss of Berto, I think on my notes too, I made a mistake here. Corbin and Berto win. Corbin and Apollo beat Angel and Berto, and the Street Profits come in, which is kind of iffy. But they beat Corbin and Apollo, which, kind of to be expected. I mean, considering the whole lineup, I mean, the only person that seemed capable of, not defeating, but, giving a challenge to the Bloodline was probably the Street Profits. But Pretty Deadly come in after Corbin and Cruz lost. And I love Pretty Deadly, but that was not happening. They lost by the Street Profits. Then the OC came in. Same thing. It was not going to happen. And OC is also really great. But they lost by the Street Profits. Then finally the Bloodline came in. And to be expected, Jacob Fatu tore through everything and everyone. And, starting with Tama Tonga wasn't smart because, of course he's going to get beat up. Someone has to get beat up on the Bloodline. That's just my hot take, okay? I just give Tama Tonga a chance.
I mean, he does what he does, but I mean, it was definitely awesome to see Baron Corbin push Apollo Crews. I just have to touch back on that because I think Apollo Crews is underrated. I think Apollo Crews should be somebody that is in that like area of the Intercontinental Champion. Like I think he should have some sort of gold around his waist. He's an incredible wrestler in NXT. I guess it's just the fact is of trying to find a way to like push him. But I think a storyline of him and Baron Corbin as a tag team, and I can see that kind of building because if we recall correctly, Baron Corbin also tagged up with Braun Breaker.
Wolf Dogs.
Yeah, and that was actually something that was a very cool tag team that actually and also the work that Baron Corbin did with a lot of people from NXT. He pushed a lot of people from NXT. So him doing the same thing now and coming up with somebody like Apollo Crews, I'm really excited to see that. Street Profits obviously are great tag team. I feel like in some ways that, it was good to see them get to the end. But I mean, everybody already knew that the Bloodline was going to be the ones to win this. Pretty Deadly, I think, is just, they have a cool gimmick. Their music's great. Like, the whole, like, homage that they have towards the whole older kind of androgynous type of wrestlers back in the day was really good to see. But of course,
they give me Breezango vibes. Just cutting in there. Miss you, Breezango.
right. But I mean, it was good to see the OC coming in just to kind of push the younger talent to a different level. But of course, obviously the Bloodline. Jacob Fatu was incredible. That whole thing with the headbutt, any type he lands on his head, regardless of what it is, and him getting up is still freaking awesome each time. So yeah, it's good to see them. I would definitely am very interested to see that tag team match. I would like to see the way that they go about it. I mean, I have a feeling the Bloodline probably is most likely going to win. I kind of personally do not really want to see that happening because I think DIY is incredible. I think those guys are some of the best wrestlers in the business. The fact that they're a tag team right now, I'd like to see them kind of hold it for a while and kind of build maybe like some sort of like multiple type of matches against maybe people like the Bloodline. So hopefully that's not just a one and done type of situation. So I'm looking forward to see how that pans out.
Yeah, that's my biggest wish. I really hope that DIY does not lose so soon. And in that regard too, like if they did lose so fast, I just suspect Tommaso getting mad and like I don't want the rivalry between Tommaso and Gargano to happen so soon. I mean, we've seen it before in like NXT. It was like the best storytelling ever in the history of NXT. And I just don't think that now is the time to do that. I just hope that in the case that they do lose, that doesn't end up happening and somehow they do get them back. Because, I mean, they're great. And I also want to go back to Baron Corbin, too, what you were saying about helping so many NXT stars. Dude, he was the heel, too, in NXT. He was getting booed like crazy, and somehow he got cheered when he had to fight Gable Stevenson, which was a terrible match, but he did it anyways just to prop that guy up. It's basically Gable Stevenson made himself look bad there, just to keep that short. But Terrence Crawford, a boxer, he hit Austin Theory. I'm not very well versed in boxing, so the fact that he came in twice, you think that he's gonna go into wrestling. That's what you said, or are you taking it as a joke?
I think that was more of a joke. I don't think so. That guy's 40-0, and he's like one of the best boxers there is right now. So, I mean, we all thought maybe at one point in time Mike Tyson was probably going to jump in the ring when he had his when he was the special guest referee against Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold. So, I mean, those things are like that. So, no, I don't think he's going to be joining the wrestling anytime soon.
Now that would be pretty crazy though if he did. But yeah, pretty cool. I just think it's kind of sad that Austin Theory just kind of always gets snubbed by Grayson Waller all the time. Okay, so to the last final main event match. That's kind of redundant, but Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax versus Bayley and Michin. We love Michin in this house too. She is amazing. I also love Keith Lee. We love Keith Lee. But Michin is awesome. I know you also like her a lot too because of the OC with AJ Styles. AJ Styles is his favorite wrestler. Yeah, she's awesome. I'm really glad that she's kind of getting more of a push within Smackdown and also the NXT brand. But she got jumped at the beginning of this match, and she was like barely able to get up, and she like tried her best too. I just kept thinking about Meek Mill saying "get up" to Cody Rhodes in my head like the entire time that she was down. So most of the time it was Bayley getting beat up, and Nia Jax did her finisher, and it was over on Bayley. I mean, couldn't do anything about that, which is very interesting considering that Nia has that match soon and so does Tiffany. So the fact that they beat her is, in my opinion, kind of interesting. I mean, like, that just hints a lot that potentially Nia could win. Maybe Tiffany cashes in on Nia, or vice versa. Nia loses and she cashes in. Just like I said, so many possibilities with that match. I hope that Michin does get more of a push and some more roles in NXT or in SmackDown. I mean, she's really great. I really hope that she, earlier in the year, we went to a show prior to, it was the same week of Elimination Chamber actually. It was a Monday Night Raw, and Michin actually showed up at a women's battle royal. That was who our pick was. But unfortunately, I mean, Raquel Rodriguez is great and all, but kind of wish they gave it a little more to like the underdog. I would consider Michin an underdog for sure.
Agreed. Michin is a great wrestler. It's nice to see her actually having more time, not just only in SmackDown, but also in NXT as well. So yeah, I think she's also helping a lot of the younger talent, pushing them as well. So I'm liking what she's doing, and yeah, that's all I gotta say about that.
Yeah, it's not much there because soon enough there will be an answer at SummerSlam next Saturday. Yeah. And the show finally concluded with Solo and the Bloodline members speaking to Cody about the match at SummerSlam, and also talking about Roman and how he was not a good champion or a good representation of a tribal chief. And, ended with like the acknowledge me kind of thing, which I think is epic. Before, I did not acknowledge the Bloodline very much. Roman's cool, but I just think this Bloodline is way cooler. And I look forward to the time, hopefully maybe at SummerSlam, where Roman does show up, and that is going to be an insane pop. I'm already getting goosebumps just thinking about the music and all that kind of stuff. I'm looking forward to it. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I was never a big Roman Reigns fan, but I have to say,
we were watching during the awful like big dog, this is my yard kind of time, so it did put a damper on his character, but he did recover though, for sure.
Yeah, I do like the way that, like, after WrestleMania 40 and just the way everything went down with Roman Reigns, and then building this new storyline with him, I'm definitely liking to see him come back as like actually like a good guy, like a baby face. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And yeah, the very possibility that he's going to be popping in for SummerSlam, I think, is very likely. But of course, that's not always a guarantee.
All right. So that concludes everything from this week's shows of Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. The final note, because I didn't have really a connection, considering this guy's hasn't been around for a while, but Brock Lesnar, Triple H had hinted at his possible return, only on one condition though, which is if Brock Lesnar wants to do it, which recently he's been seen with less muscle mass, so I'm not really sure. Obviously he's in a pretty terrible lawsuit, but he's winning, I would say so. So I don't know if he even wants to come back. I mean, it would be awesome. I mean, I can imagine that pop too. I mean, that would be crazy, but that would take a lot of time, I think, for that to even happen. Plus, I think he's more focused on his family right now, which is cool with me. But the fact that it's still open for him to join is, I mean, that makes for some great anticipation if it does happen.
Just don't be surprised the fact that maybe it might be Brock Lesnar's music playing at the end of that Solo and Cody match.
I think that's a little too soon, considering he doesn't, like I said, like with the muscle mass thing, like just recently, I don't know. Like obviously he's genetically able to like build himself and all that stuff, so it could happen so fast too. I just think maybe that's a little too soon. The Royal Rumble, dude, he dominated the Royal Rumble for so long, for like years and stuff, like just within it, or being in many of them. I think that would be a good place for him to come back to. And I can't really think of any person that he would fight right now in the moment.
He can come and save Cody.
That's true. That'd be pretty cool. Especially if like Hikuleo decides to join the Bloodline, or there's more additions to the Bloodline. They're gonna need like way more people on their side, which is, I think, the best possible thing. That's just more anticipation to come, as opposed to be like if Hikuleo were to join the good guy side. I think it would be awesome though, but I think it would kill the anticipation of like, oh, who's next? Who's coming on the side of, there's going to be more people to come on Cody's side and stuff. If, Hikuleo were to join the Bloodline, there's lots of things that happen in SummerSlam. There are other SummerSlam matches I believe we did not touch on. I'm pretty sure, maybe. But we are going to make a SummerSlam predictions video. Should be coming Friday. So, check that out if you're watching. Yeah, any final statements? No? All right. Well, that is all for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.